Hello everyone and welcome to the latest episode of SUGTalks. I'm Craig Dale, your host, and together with our special guests we'll take a deep dive into the topics, challenges and opportunities facing SAP users today. Please make sure you do subscribe so you never miss another episode. I'm delighted to be joined once again today by Simon Nichols, CEO of Thrive. And in today's mental health focused episode, we'll be discussing the importance of rest and how a lack of it can negatively impact our mental health. So welcome, Simon.
Oh, sorry, Craig. I was just having a little nap there just before we. Nothing to do with your dulcet tones. Just the importance. We're going to be talking about naps all day today. So thank you so much. Well, really good to be here.
Oh, great stuff. Great to have you again. And I get that a lot, actually. People do say they can listen to my voice and I'll bore them to sleep. So that's quite good. Before we get into that main topic, we know from previous episodes that you're a keen bird watcher. What's the most memorable bird you've ever spotted and where did you see it?
Wow. That's one of the most difficult questions you can ask a bird watcher or a birder because, it's a fantastic question. It is, and here I can already hear Chris sort of knows that we're going over time on this one. I'll tell you what, I'll plump straight for the species that was in the most wildest, remotest location. That's probably the one that one of my go-tos. And it was a bird called a black-browed albatross. And you might have heard of albatrosses. Yeah, they have huge wingspans. Albatrosses are Southern Ocean birds, so very rare to get anything coming above the equator. However, black-browed albatrosses are one of the few albatrosses that do manage to break that equator. And there's a little set of islands called Sula Cigar, and they are northwest of the most northwesterly point in the UK. And I can't remember the exact year, but there was a boatload of us, literally a boatload, about 300 birders on a ice-breaking boat that we left Ullapool and we headed out to Sula Cigar, which had a huge gannet tree. So gannets are another seabird. They're our albatrosses, basically. And in amongst this vast numbers, 20, 30, 40,000 gannets, was a single black-browed albatross. And we arrived there the day before another boat with 300 people had seen it sitting on its ledge, on its rock ledge. And we arrived there and there was no albatross. And it took about an hour before someone saw it shearing past the boat, and we were finally able to see. So black-browed albatross, Sula Cigar, in the early, I think 2006, probably my most memorable.
Wow, that sounds amazing, because they are huge, aren't they? Is it still, do I remember that, I think this is from my school days, that the albatross has the largest wingspan of birds, is that right?
Yeah.
Maybe a pterodactyl.
Apart from pterodactyls and any other of the large extinct birds, wandering albatross has the largest wingspan, yeah.
Cool. Oh, well, I do remember some useful things now and again. So, okay, on to our main subject, if we may, Simon. And, many people will have had time off over Christmas and New Year, although I suspect many might say that they don't feel fully rested from that period. How does a lack of rest affect us in our day-to-day lives?
Well, let's think about, so we have to think about rest in a number of ways. One of the ways that we're going to be really sort of thinking about it today is sleep. And I mentioned naps to begin with earlier. So if we think about that lack of, or our bodies not quite shutting down, we can rest in many different ways, of course. We can sit down, we can stop, we can look around. It's very restful to do a different activity as well. But what we're going to be talking today is we're going to be talking about how that the combination of sleeping and resting, how important that is as well. And just think about anything, any engine, anything that works. Our body and our mind are engines effectively, and we need fuel in order for them to go. We need to give them rest. We need to give them time to recharge and calm down. So let's think about this from a workplace perspective. What happens if we don't get enough sleep? Decreased productivity. Tasks take longer to finish. We may have slower reaction times. That might be really important in a job that we do. We may have poor concentration. How can we actually focus on something when we're exhausted? Mood changes as well. We might feel irritable. We might start to see signs of anxiety, depression, maybe even paranoia when you're really that sort of level of exhausted. You might actually fall asleep while being awake. We call it microsleep, and I'm sure some people have possibly experienced this while they've been driving along late at night, and suddenly the junction that they thought they was at is 5 miles past, and you think, what has actually happened to me? And your brain has gone into a sort of form of stasis, and you've not registered what's gone on. You could also think about how that might impact your immune system. We're going to be talking a lot about the immune system as well. So not getting enough rest really can impact us. And it's a main driver around the initial onset or even a reoccurrence of mental health difficulties for a lot of people.
And I suppose something we may come back to, but I suppose understanding yourself of well and the rest you need. I know that I need somewhere close to 8 hours sleep a night. Otherwise, Vicky will probably come into the office and say, God, what's wrong with your face? It just, I know I'm tired if I'm not, and you mentioned the grumpiness, etc., and I know from my personal experience that is what I need to try and do. But others perhaps don't need as much sleep.
We don't. As a human species, the desired amount of sleep for an adult is anywhere between 6.5 and 8 hours. But you'll have people on this podcast shouting at it, going, I only need 6, I only need 5, I need 10. We are all different. Our job, what we do as a job will detail how much sleep we need, whether or not we got a good night's sleep the night before or poor night's sleep the night before as well. I need probably 5.5. I desire 9. 9 is my if I can go to bed at 11 o'clock and wake up at 8 o'clock, that's fantastic. But I don't. I tend to wake up at 6 or 7 if I go to bed at 11. If I go to bed earlier, that's normally more beneficial to me. If I go to bed at 10, I can then sleep through till 6 or 7. I don't have a set amount of time. So for a lot of people, it might be that you need less sleep, or you might need to go to sleep at different times. And I think that's the really important thing. No, there's no one sleep fits all, and we know that a lot of people listening to this will probably do night shifts as well, and that's a whole different podcast around the impact of not only sleep deprivation, what you're putting your body through, but also the irregularity of eating, etc. So different people do need different sleep amounts, but it's also the amount of rest that you get during the day as well that contributes to whether or not you need that level of sleep.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, taking time out now and again. I mean, I know something I do is if I feel like I've just been full on, I think it became more prevalent during the lockdown period when we ended up back-to-back Teams calls and things like that. That is very, very tiring and can really drain you mentally, I believe. And sometimes if I feel like today I've been back-to-back after a few days off, back-to-back all morning, I just went for a little walk outside. Even though it was about to blow my wig off, it's that windy up here. But I just needed that 5 minutes of fresh air.
We do as well, and I mean, you've probably heard me refer to it quite a lot as the change in breath as well. I did one while you were talking. That sort of big deep breath in, hold it, and just breathe out again. Just that, take a little bit of time to stop. I can never remember the quote properly. It's one of my favourites. Ferris Bueller's, isn't it? If we don't take time to stop around and look around, life moves pretty fast. We're going to miss it. And even just taking a minute of rest out of our day. When we think about let's take the short-term effects. I know we were mentioning there some of the impacts, but if we look at the immediacy of not having a good sleep, not having any rest, you're talking fatigue, you're talking concentration, we're talking lapses in memory, we're talking irritability, mood swings, energy changes, relationship problems. If that's not enough to get you to think, right, you know what, I really should change something. I really should maybe twist it a little bit whereby that I can get some rest. And for rest means just not doing what I'm doing, the daily grind. As you said there, you've got everything was back to back. Let's not even go on. I mean, you can now go home after this, Craig, because as you know, being online is 3 times more exhausting. So effectively, although we're recording this podcast, let's say we're recording it for an hour, you've done 3 hours of work. So, you know, I think you can go home now.
Oh, thank you.
That's all right.
I appreciate that. And so we've talked about a few different things on kind of the impact of a lack of rest. And, you know, what is the longer term impact, if you like? You know, we've touched on mood and, you know, that ability where it will, your mood may drop, and having rest can enhance your mood if you're getting enough sleep, etc. What other things are the long-term impact?
So let's take it. So if we think of mental health difficulties, mental health disorders, if we're talking about, you know, the big 3 effectively, which is stress, anxiety, and depression. If you do not have a huge amount of stress or stress overwhelm, stress burnout, depression, anxiety, what lack of sleep will increase the risk of you developing. It will increase the risk of your brain not thinking the way that you want it to do. If you already have a condition, a mental ill health condition, such as stress, overwhelm, anxiety, and depression, well, guess what? It will actually continue those thoughts and feelings. Maybe even, in certain cases, potentially talking about suicidal ideation. So we've suddenly got, if we're not looking after ourselves, there's the propensity to become have mental difficulties. But actually, if we're already living with mental ill health, then actually the propensity for it to get worse while we're then. We may also start to experience, I talked about paranoia earlier, we may also start to experience other psychiatric symptoms. When we're tired, we hear things that are not there, we see things that are not there. We have all those little lights going up in our eyes when we stayed up too late and we've just stared at the screen. The problem of that is that actually, as you start to, I guess, go downhill or worsen with your mental ill health, your sleep will be impacted. So as a direct result of not getting enough sleep in the first place, your sleep will actually be impacted. So you then have to work twice as hard to, I guess, get back on track. And then one of our most favourite things that we talk about a lot, Craig, which is change. We will struggle with change. We'll struggle to accept decisions made on our behalf. Well, even the smallest thing, we've changed the coffee in the machine at work. Well, I can't handle it. I can't deal with that. I need to leave. So all of this goes back to our fight and flight. All of this goes back to our survival element. We're not being rested enough. We're not being able to change enough. It could also do the opposite as well. Not only are we reluctant to change, but it also increase our risk taking behavior. So we can actually say, well, on this little amount of sleep, I'm going to go out and drive. I'm going to go, drive overnight somewhere. All of these things have huge impact on our well-being. And it's we talk about it all the time. It's one of the most fundamentals of a very healthy life is to get enough sleep, to get enough rest.
And not just mental health, I suppose. It also impacts physical health as well. I think my mum always used to say, while you're sleeping, you're healing.
Yes, yeah, you are. Your muscles are relaxing, your body's healing itself, your brain is getting downtime, your body's allowing yourself to heal. And there is no health without mental health. We know that. So how do we actually put all this together, that we heal physically, but we also start to heal mentally? And you're right. I mean, from a physical perspective, we know the impact of long-term depression and anxiety on our muscles, on our we slump over, we lose muscle, we get muscle fatigue, we start to see aches and pains. If we're talking about sort of serious chronic anxiety, we start to have heart palpitations, we start to see our blood levels rises. It's, I'm sort of going off on my soapbox here, but everything is impacted by the way that we think and feel. And if we're not thinking and feeling at our best, we will be impacted.
And well, why do you think that many of us possibly don't seek to ensure we have the right amount of rest?
I might ask you this question in reverse in a minute, Craig. I always put this down to three different areas. The first one is shame. And when we think about shame, what we're thinking about really is that people don't deserve it. I haven't done enough yet. I haven't done enough to deserve me having that level of rest. The other thing as well is productivity, especially in the workplace. If I take time off, if I'm not being the first one in and the last one to leave, then actually I might be seen as being lazy. So I can't reduce my productivity. So I can't take that downtime, because if I leave this report now, it'll punish me later. And then also the pace of life that we live in today. And if you think about, we're always on, aren't we? When we get up in the morning, apart from that lovely walk where we're thinking of nothing, we've still probably got a device attached to us. We're still sort of having a look at our messages. We're listening to podcasts such as SUGTalks, where we're connected. And the only time we disconnect is when we go to sleep. And for many of us, sometimes we don't even disconnect when we go to sleep, because the phone is in the room with us, and we wake up at 2:00 in the morning. I've got a notification. I'll just have a quick check. So it's but again, probably another whole podcast on how we need to disconnect from our pace of life.
I must admit that's something that I started doing last year, and that's using the sleep focus function on my phone, so that from the hours that I set, no notifications show. So it does help. I must admit, it stops you checking those devices or the room lighting up when a notification comes in or something.
We know our community, but we don't know yours yet. Why not share the benefits of your UK&I Sub membership with those who don't know about us? The UK&I Sub referral scheme rewards you for helping to grow and develop our community. You can check out the link in the description to find out more about how you can get involved. Terms and conditions apply. We hope you enjoy the rest of the podcast.
So we've kind of touched on two kind of areas here, rest and sleep. And what's either the difference or the relationship between the two?
So if we take sleep, sleep's the easy one, isn't it? Sleep is when our body goes into a state of stasis, and I'm not a sleep expert, so I'm not going to give you the sort of the chapter and verse around rapid eye movement and all of that sort of great stuff. There is a book, I think Matthew Walker wrote an amazing book around, I think it's called Why We Sleep. But sleep is our body's natural way, as you said, of healing, of resetting, and more importantly, of downloading. What your brain doesn't switch off when you're asleep. What it does is it analyzes and assesses everything that's gone on the day before. So if you think you as a toddler, you've just discovered 175 new things today. This tastes well, this doesn't taste well, you can't eat stones. If you pull that off, mummy gets sad. If you do that, all of these things, and the curtains are falling down around you, you suddenly learn all this new stuff as a toddler. And then you have to download that. You have to ingest that. Now, a lot of it will just dribble out, but some of it will stick. And the next day, you compound that. So what sleep allows us to do is it allows us to learn. It allows us to adapt. What did I do yesterday? Now, if our day is one of a heightened anxiety and stress, then all of our download is going to be is like, well, this was what it was yesterday. Wake up in the morning and we're like, right, we're back in that heightened state again. So sleep is really that sort of reset button. Press the reset, the reboot. And that's why for a lot of people, they feel super refreshed after they sleep. And it's that first 5 or 6 minutes after they wake up and suddenly the world comes imploding in again, because actually their body's done a really good job of telling them it's okay while they're sleeping. And when we think of rest, as I said, takes on many forms. Rest can be a snooze, it can be a nap, but it's not the reset function. It's what it is. It's just a point in time stopping of what you're doing. You can have a rest, as I said, mountain climbers have a rest by just hanging on to the rock. They're not moving, their muscles are not working. Footballers have a rest by standing and walking around the field in the middle of a play. Very rarely do they just sort of slump down on the floor. It's because they need to keep their muscles going. So the difference between resting and sleeping, I think, is fundamentally not only the time and the duration that you do the resting, but also the purpose of it. I think a rest should be enough to fuel you up, whether that's with food, with drink, with fresh air, with a change in breath. It's enough to get you through to the next bit, with the ultimate end goal of having quite a few rests during the day so that you actually feel refreshed in the evening and you can get that good night's sleep.
Thank you. And I just want to go back to something you mentioned. You mentioned taking time off. And I think that, research from the CIPD, apparently over half of employees have done the job, say, in the last 3 months, despite not feeling well. So they're feeling under the weather, and that's gone up from 46% in 2022. So it's on the rise. So you mentioned a couple of things there, one being shame as such, I think. But do we have a fundamental issue, perhaps, in the UK specifically, the UK and Ireland specifically, with not taking sick leave, that's also adding to our lack of rest?
Completely. You would have thought there's another statistic that goes alongside this one, and it's 93%. And it's 93%. The pressure to go in while they're poorly is from within. It's from themselves. So only 7% actually feel pressured to go in because maybe of peer pressure, of work-related issues. 93% of us force ourselves to go to work. And it's one of those fundamental elements, isn't it? I'm not feeling well, so I'm not going to do a good enough job. My productivity is going to be down. I'm not going to be at my best. I'm going to feel worse afterwards. And then the big one, and we did see a lot of this during COVID, I'm going to possibly infect other people as well. If we're talking about a virus or something like that, so why do we do this? Our co-workers, our friends, don't want us to come in. Why do we go, I'll muscle through, I'll get, but again, it's when we think about our mental health, the way that we do things, how we think affects how we feel, and it affects our behaviour. And if we have been told that it's only a cold, or heaven forbid man flu, just get over it. All of these things are engineered to push us forward, to drive us forward. Well, I'm going to show you then. I'm going to come in with my cold and I'm still going to do my job. And it's actually the most people would want you to stay at home. And what we also see as well, let's say we go in with a physical illness, okay? We go in with a virus. Our body needs the sleep to recover. It needs the rest. It needs us to be able to breathe properly. All of those things are impacting us whilst we're struggling to get into the workplace, struggling to do our job, which means that virus will actually take hold longer and may actually floor us in days to come because we didn't give it the time that it needed to recover. So we're actually doing more damage by going in. And then what we see is we might have a longer time off work because we've impacted ourselves so much.
Yeah, and I've had this conversation numerous times of, look, okay, yes, we're busy. Yes, things need doing. But I'd rather lose you for a few days now than 6 months later down the line.
Completely. It's and that's a beautiful vision to have, actually, Craig, because it's one that a lot of organisations don't have, unfortunately. And again, it goes back to that level of shame. If I'm letting people down if I don't go in, well, actually, if you've got that home, work-life balance sorted, which means you can work from home. Actually, sitting at home, sneezing and coughing and all of those good things on your own laptop, that's fine. But there you can control your environment. And maybe you can only work for half an hour. You go and have a half an hour rest. You go and have a nap, and then come back and do another little bit of work. So it's just about knowing and understanding what your body needs from you.
And in these instances, caring isn't always sharing.
No.
So when we're thinking about then, so let's move to, we talked about staff feel that within 93%, I think you said, it pushing themselves to come in, but 7% obviously feel pressure from external pressure to come in. What can, I suppose, business leaders do to ensure that their teams do take the more appropriate amount of time off and get enough rest?
Well, we know that quite a lot of senior leaders do listen to these podcasts, so I'm going to give them 4 bits of advice now. The first bit is set an example. Take time off yourself. Prioritize yourself. There is no good leader that is flat on the floor because they're exhausted, they're burnt out. That's not what a leader should be doing. A leader should be knowing their limits as well as their staff's limits. So the first one is set an example. Prioritize yourself. Model those habits within your team as well. If you do that, what you will start to foster is that supportive culture. And by fostering a supportive culture is just what you've just said there. Promoting wellness, you're promoting well-being, and you recognize the value of it. I want to lose you now for a week instead of 6 months. Why do I want to lose you for a week? Because I care about you. And in that caring, not sharing culture, then you're able to demonstrate as a leader that this is what the business wants. It's not about what you as a leader want, it's what the business wants. We want you to be the wellest, the fittest, and the most inclusive that we can be. And then we need to do what you've just said there as well, is provide that flexibility. Good leaders are flexible. They give their team that flexibility, autonomy, that actually, as long as the job gets done, I don't care how it gets done. And that's the thing that a lot of micromanagers can't manage, is I want to see what you're doing every minute of every day. That doesn't get the best out of your staff. And the last one as well is it's about knowing what's actually happening in your business. So as a leader, who is taking time off? Why are they taking time off? What's the conversations you're having with them when they come back into work? Is it a regular thing? Most leaders don't monitor what's happening with their staff or speaking to their senior leaders within the business. What can we do? Why are certain departments taking more time off or feeling more exhaustion or coming in late? So again, it goes back to those statistics that we always talk about within organizations, is know your business, understand what's happening with your staff, and then you can start to put actions around it.
Thank you. And just flipping that now, if I may, what are the positive benefits of making sure we get plenty of rest?
Right. So where do we start? It's almost the opposite, isn't it, of where we started. So let's look at our mental health first of all. Let's look at the main reason that we're here on this planet. So what do? We get rest, we get sleep, we reduce our stress and anxiety, we prevent burnout. We basically improve our overall health. if we're over improving our mental health, we'll be improving our physical health. That we get that recovery time. So what do we recover from? Well, we recover from those, if you remember those stress cortisol spikes that we always talk about. We get this infusion of cortisol and glucose and adrenaline into our bloodstreams. Well, that causes our body to behave in a different way. So actually, we can start to recover from those cortisol spikes. We start to sleep better. By sleeping better, we actually start to foster that level of sleep better. This all improves our physical health. We'll then start to develop a better work-life balance because we're feeling that the work isn't everything. Actually, we've started to be more refreshed when we go in. If we go in with a refreshed mindset, we're going to do something different. The way we think affects the way we feel, affects the way we behave. What does that mean for the workplace? You're going to get increased productivity. You're going to be more resilient to work challenges, and you're going to focus on the work that has meaning. And I think that's really important because a lot of your staff, you listening, a lot of your staff will be with your organization because they love it. So it's our job as senior leaders to motivate those employees, to inspire those employees. And that's another benefit that you'll get from that enhanced rest, is that you'll be able to trust easily. Because remember what I said is that you don't get too much sleep. You start thinking about paranoia. Everyone's out to get you. Actually, if you're able to calm your thoughts, you're able to think more clearly, come in with a refreshed mindset, you will feel better.
And on that note, what can we do to improve let's focus on sleep, because I think that's the big one. What can we do to improve our sleep?
Right, well, the three top tips are: make your room the environment that you want to sleep in. And by that, I mean, do you need blackout blinds? Do you need a certain temperature? Do you need certain lighting in there? Do you need the absence of your mobile phones? Make your bedroom your safe place, your haven. Make your bed every morning. Make your bed every morning. When you look into your bedroom, try and keep the floor clear from clutter. Make it a safe space to go back to. Number 2, drink a glass of water before you go to bed. Now, I know this might be counterproductive for individuals who might need to get up, but what most of us don't drink, Craig's drinking a glass of water, what most of us don't do is drink enough water. We are made up of, I'm going to get the percentage wrong, is it 98% water? I can't remember what the body's percentage of water is. A lot of that water is needed for the brain. So if we go to bed dehydrated, a lot of the water gets sucked from our brain, so our brain can't react in the same way. So by drinking a glass of water, it will go to the area of your body that needs it most, which means your brain will get that water. It won't necessarily, if you're already feeling dehydrated, it's not going to go and straight into your bladder. It will get absorbed by your bloodstream. And then the last one is regularity. Go to bed at a certain time and get up at a certain time. Make that routine part of your bedtime element. It's 9 o'clock. I'm going to go to bed at 10. I'm going to have a glass of water now. I'm going to have a soft milky drink. And then I'm going to have a glass of water before I go to bed. And at 10 o'clock, I'm in my safe haven. My phone is charging outside in the dining room. I've got my alarm clock. We do have alarm clocks, that are not our mobile phones. Anyone there is going, but it's my alarm clock. You can buy a very reasonable alarm clock for $5.99 off Amazon. Set your alarm clock up for the time you want to wake up in the morning. And the more times you do that, the safer the haven is going to be, and the more hydrated you are, the better night's sleep you will have.
Fantastic. I use my watch, actually, because it taps my wrist, and then it doesn't wake anybody else up either.
A considerate early morning riser, Mr. Dale.
Thank you for that, Simon. Really, really interesting. And is there anything perhaps we haven't covered, or anything else you'd like to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I think we not only do we need to recognise in ourselves when we might need some time off, but also recognising it in other people as well. If you're sitting next to a colleague and they're sort of frequently holding their head in their hands or exclaiming loudly, which is what I tend to do, using some choice words. Why are they feeling like that? Is it because they haven't had a break? Is it because they need to just step outside? And the beautiful thing about this is not only can you support someone by saying, do you know what, let's just go outside for a little walk. I think we both need a break. And you probably said that to a colleague or something. We both need a coffee, because not only do you do, but someone else might do as well. So learn to register your signs of fatigue, but also maybe learn to register the person next to your signs of fatigue as well. And if you both go out and get a break, you'll have that human connection, oxytocin, you'll get dopamine, you'll get the endorphins from walking out. And also if you come back and have a glass of water, your serotonin levels will be stabilized as well. Happy days.
Fantastic. Simon, thank you. Thank you very much for your time, for your insights, and to our listeners, thank you for listening. We hope you enjoyed the conversation and found it valuable. Please make sure you do hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our future episodes. And until the next time, stay safe, sleep well, and therefore keep well.